Hi, I'm Carol East. I'm excited to share my experience in the Adult Education and Training Program at Colorado State University. As a short and long distance runner, I've learned some very valuable lessons. For me, I have found a productive experience includes 3 basic phases. I need to be adequately prepared, mentally and physically, fully motivated, and successfully endure to the end. My time in the AET program has been like this run. Looking back over the past 2 years, I've been able to look at the instructional beauty of the AET program, how it now seems almost perfectly engineered to complete the aforementioned phases of development. These courses have provided all the tools I've needed to be prepared to meet my students' learning requirements, both in my teaching techniques as well as my interaction with them. AET has given me many ideas and concepts to help make my learning fun and interesting, thereby keeping my students motivated to learn and me inspired to both teach and facilitate. My courses dealing with research, design, and program development, to name a few, have allowed me to stay the course. Just as important, however, they have supplied me with a firm foundation for facing all future educational endeavors. Shortly after I began my AET experience, I was asked in EDAE 620, Processes and Methods, to state my teaching philosophy. This was somewhat of a shock. I had only been teaching for a year, and I had not really thought about having a particular philosophy. Fortunately, I was helped by recalling how I interacted with my students and my commitment to their learning. I also thought about the approach some of my teachers used with me. As a shy high school student who had difficulty in learning almost everything, I came to appreciate those teachers who took the time to help me through these trials. This is how I wanted to treat my students. I realized that they have different styles of learning and tried whenever possible to accommodate those differences. In my field, there are certain professional standards that must be met by everyone. For this reason, I decided to use a scientific or bottom-up approach in which I started with the end results, in this case, effective, competently trained dental assistants, and then worked backwards to create a curriculum that would achieve this. Some standards of care may seem rather dry, but as often as I could, I tried to make this learning fun. I knew at some point, though, that I would need to establish a more formalized teaching philosophy. EDAE 624, Adult Teaching and Learning, supplied this need very well because it introduced a number of learning theories to which I was immediately attracted. Constructivism seemed to closely parallel my teaching approach, in which I attempted to tailor or construct a teaching method that would meet the needs of my students. I liked this theory because it also supported the concept of the flipped class method, a technique that allowed students to take more control over their education. Here, they could actually become the instructors while I acted as their facilitator. The experiential learning theory was another concept I found greatly intriguing. Using prior individual experiences to aid in the learning process seemed an ideal way for students to not only accommodate their particular learning styles, but also allow them to celebrate their individuality. I found transformative learning, which requires a fundamental change in sense of self, belief systems, and learning styles, to be the answer when it comes to accepting and adopting professional standards. In order for students to be fully on board with a hands-on activity like dental assisting, they have to believe in its importance and take ownership of it. At this point, I felt I had a more clearly defined philosophy, allowing students to transform themselves into productive dental assistants by taking control over their education, using their unique talents and experiences to accomplish this. I think I've armed myself with some pretty effective tools and philosophies to meet challenges either in running or education. I feel that I've done the work to make myself sufficiently prepared. Now it's time to put theory to practice. So let's go for a run. In every student's life, or every runner's for that matter, there comes a life-changing or aha moment. For me, it was EDAE 692 Experiential Learning Seminar at the Mountain Campus. From the moment I arrived, my instructor, Dr. Leanne Kaiser, had us participate in various games and activities that not only helped us to get to know one another, but also turned us into a focused, cohesive unit. My understanding of experiential learning is that it involves learning through different experiences, facilitation, games, and team-building activities outside the traditional academic setting. An important component to this approach is reflection, which can be applied to both learning and teaching. It is important to think about what you learned or taught to understand how this experience affected or changed you and how it can be applied to future goals. By taking the lead in facilitating certain classes and by enthusiastically participating in assorted team exercises, students can realize their strengths as individuals as well as their value as members of an effective unit. In this way, they are prepared to handle future challenges on their own if no help is available. They also learn to face challenges that are beyond the capabilities of a single person and must be met as a team, which has become stronger than the sum of its parts. As quickly as I could, I adapted what I learned in this seminar to the classes I conducted with my students. I found that team-building activities have made them much more effective and happy, both as individuals and as class members. This was a great opportunity to use what I learned in EDAE 620, processes and methods, specifically about creating a reflective journal lesson plan. It may have been hard for my students to get into reflective journaling, but I think they came to realize the great academic advantage they had in reflecting on what they learned and knowing how they could use it, especially in a hands-on environment like dental assisting. I love experiential learning. This is how I want to teach, and this is why I love teaching. This fall, I'm looking forward to attending the annual conference of the National Society for Experiential Education. I'm excited at the prospect of rubbing shoulders with those who have greater knowledge in this field than I do and learning additional, more advanced concepts. Hopefully, this will make me a better practitioner of the experiential theory. One of my many goals is to revamp several of the dental assisting technology classes. It's my plan to change these classes from traditional lecture formats to experiential-based flipped class activities. I feel the education I receive through the AET experience will enable me to accomplish these goals. Well, I've been running for a while now. I feel I was well prepared for this effort and did those things to motivate me to get going. But what if it's not all smooth sailing? I know that sooner or later, all runners hit that wall, or educators will experience that mental block or unforeseen circumstance. How will I deal with that? Motivation is great and an invaluable part of the process, but I may need more, something to give me the oomph I'll need to finish the run, and just as important, to face the challenges of future run. EDAE 629 program development made me feel more like a full-fledged teacher, that I could create new classes if and when I needed to. From literature reviews to learner and program analysis to budgeting and more, I was able to understand what goes into developing a new or revised curriculum or program. This was particularly important to me in dealing with my students and the training program I hope to direct in the near future. In fact, I used this information to develop our dental assisting instructor aid program in which selected experienced dental assistants mentor the students in clinical procedures, providing a more consistent learning experience. Ever since I first heard of it, I've always wanted to incorporate the flipped class approach into my teaching, and what better way to complete my EDRM 600 Research Methods project than to use it with my students. I suspected that allowing the students to learn by teaching themselves would make learning more active, but would also enable them to better retain the material. I was not disappointed. Not only did their academic performance improve, survey results showed that the students were more satisfied with this learning approach. My relationship with the flipped class is not going to end here. I've noticed there is a significant lack of studies dealing with flipped class methods as they relate to hands-on education. For this reason, I plan to conduct future research in this area. Hand in hand with program development were EDAE 664, Assessment and Evaluation, as well as EDAE 639, Instructional Design. Here, I acquired the tools needed to create individual classes. This is where the knowledge of self and student assessments, creating goals and objectives, and evaluating classes came in handy. Again, I was able to use these techniques to create improvements in an existing class, in this case, our dental sealant class. The timing here couldn't have been better. We had received recent feedback on the questionable quality of dental sealants being placed by the students. This led to my revising the class based largely on input from experienced assistants, providers, and the students themselves. I credit these AET courses with the immediate improvements we saw in dental sealant placement and durability. Well, as anticipated, I finally hit the wall. This occurred when I began EDUC 651, Multicultural and Special Populations. I had no trouble seeing the importance of instructors being able to successfully interact with students of all types of cultures and ethnic backgrounds. The subject matter, however, was in an area that, up to that point, I had not had to deal with. I was definitely out of my area and must admit to some struggling to understand the concepts being presented. As I got into it, however, I learned to rise above my nervousness and possible naive characteristics and get out of my comfort zone. This, I knew, was a source of strength and could help me weather the storm. I even had a bit of fun presenting some of my work as poems. This course is geared to enable one to function in a multicultural environment. Currently, my student body is almost exclusively Alaska Natives. As I belong to this culture myself, it's an area with which I am pretty comfortable. Having said that, I probably won't always be teaching this population, and having this course in my toolkit will be a definite plus in educational ventures of the future. This brings me to my goals. As previously stated, I've shared a few of them throughout the presentation, but there are many others which, in the interest of time, I'll speak about briefly. In the short term, I plan to learn the Commission on Dental Accreditation Standards, which will be necessary to maintain our training program's collegiate accreditation. I also plan to participate in various academic courses and professional organizations as shown on the slide. On a more long-term basis, I hope to assume directorship of the Dental Assisting Technology program, taking it into future achievements. As you will see from my family collage, I have a beautiful granddaughter with a vascular birthmark. My aim is to learn as much as possible about this condition and participate in research in this field. As a certified dental assistant, I know the value that this credential brings to the profession, and I hope to get the Alaska Dental Establishment to recognize its importance. These goals will certainly keep my plate full, but I think they will open up even more opportunities for growth in the years to come. I'm almost there. I prepared, I motivated myself, and I endured. I even dealt with the wall. These courses each have many facets and qualities that could be used in all the phases I discussed. There is so much more that I could say if I had the time, but I feel this presentation has shown that I have what I need to handle future goals, some of which I've shared with you. One of the major goals is the prospective advancement in my position to program director later this year. But now I'd like to take a moment and say some thank yous. I'd like to thank all of my AET instructors for your knowledge, insight, and your constructive feedback, all of which has made me a better facilitator. One assignment in EDAE 520, Adult Education, was about the subject of learning spaces. This feature has been with me since my very first semester, and I've used it often as a source of strength and support. For my learning space, I selected a graffiti poster. This was my media of choice for two major reasons. It can be very colorful, therefore it makes me happy, and it is crazy and unpredictable, which reflects this student's life, one who works full-time. If you'll notice, I try to be more uniform in my graffiti layout because it is very important to me to maintain as much order as I possibly can so that I can achieve my responsibilities and goals. My online connections are represented with the online education being bright in color because it has changed my career and life. Connection through Canvas, FaceTime, discussion boards, Google Docs has not only afforded me new friendships, but the experiences shared online have been meaningful and educational. Other resources of continuing education, textbooks, articles, libraries, and various web pages have helped me grow in my field. Taking the time to study new dental materials allows my students to see how important it is to me to be up on the latest and greatest to make their learning more valuable. The most valuable portion of my poster is the support I have received from so many. Positive feedback from classmates and instructors helps me see where I need to grow. Having a mentor who is there to answer questions, gently nudge, and sometimes push is helpful, as are coworkers who want to see me succeed as much as I do. My students are a vital source because sometimes I feel they teach me more than I teach them. The most treasured aspect of my learning space are my children and grandchildren, my greatest cheerleaders. If I can change their direction because of my personal motivation, I have gained a lot. And John, my husband, without whom I would not be where I am today, because of his willingness to sacrifice and hold the reins when I just couldn't hold on. One more thing I would like to point out is the way I added reflection to each word. This denotes togetherness because one without the other would make my learning space unstable. It looks like I have about a quarter of a mile to go, and the finish line is just over that hill. I once asked my running coach why it seems every run ends on a hill. To paraphrase him, it's a way of separating those who are willing to stick it out from those who aren't. Once again, thank you for everything, and now I'm going to finish that run. To motivate. Okay. To motivate. Why can't I?
Just about got it,